Well, Don Mafia, it is that time of the year again, the 2019 to 2020 NFL playoffs, and the Buffalo Bills are back. So as I'm sure you know, Don Mafia, we are going up against the Houston Texans this coming Saturday. And don't get me wrong, they are also a playoff team who just so happen to have a couple of very impressive victories so far during the regular season. But personally, I have a feeling we're about to bitch slap them on national television. Jaboy would not make such a bold claim without doing a lot of research to come to the final conclusion of who is about to be receiving the bitch slap on Saturday. Which is exactly why I compiled a couple of reasons why I know this for a fact that the Buffalo Bills will defeat the Houston Texans. And I thought that we should just go through them together for shits and giggles, for old time's sake. But before we do that, just a quick reminder, I did drop merch, Run the Damn Ball collection. Say that you want to cop yourself a sweatshirt, then that link is in the description. If not, then thank you anyway for tuning into this video. And believe it or not, my prediction for a live television bitch slap was not made blindly. And I mostly believe this because the Houston Texans defense is hot garbage. In fact, right overall, they rank 28th across the entire NFL, and they just so happen to be the worst defense that is in the 2019 to 2020 playoffs today. And they just so happen just to be letting up 388 yards per game and 6.1 yards per play. And now I totally understand that the Bills really haven't been putting up flashy offensive numbers this season. But one thing we can do is we can run the damn ball. And so our rush attack ranks 8th in the league, and we're rushing for about 124 yards per game. So that just so happens to be ranked up against the 25th ranked rush defense in the NFL, who has been letting up an average of 171 yards per game their past 3 matchups. With that stat alone, I 100% expect Devin Singletary to absolutely go off and wouldn't be surprised if Josh Allen's legs are used heavily. Now, don't be fooled. I know that I was emphasizing that the Houston Texans can't stop the run for the life of them, but they're pretty shitty at stopping the pass as well. They rank 29th in the league. Now, I will reiterate, I do know that our offense hasn't been putting up flashy numbers, especially in the passing game. But there is one stat that I thought that I would shed a little bit of light on. Josh Allen has an average 70% completion rate when playing in a dome throughout his entire career. You see that, right? You know what that's called? A dome. Now, maybe it has to do with the fact that Josh hasn't made the adjustments with the weather, and he just so happens to ball out when it comes to a dome. With that being said, I'm really liking our chances to take advantage of such a weak secondary in an environment that Josh has thrived in throughout his entire career. And while I do think that our strategy is going to be a run-first attack, I have a feeling that Cole Beasley is probably about to be largely utilized. It was funny because I was scrolling through Twitter right before I started filming this video, and I saw an interesting stat. The Houston Texans defense has been getting absolutely torched this year with short passes up the middle. They're letting up an 84% completion percentage on an average of 10.6 yards per play when the pass attack is directed up the middle mid-range. Now, who does that scream on the Buffalo Bills, ladies and gentlemen? Cole motherfucking Beasley. Now, I wouldn't mind to see the deep ball, but I really hope that Josh just goes on ahead and just continuously dumps off those 6 to 7 yard passes, and then maybe lets one off once we go up 2 scores. Now, we all know that the Houston Texans offense can ball. And with all due respect, they need the ball, especially with the defensive product that they put out on the field. Now, when we think of the Houston Texans, we automatically think of their air attack with Watson, Hopkins, Fuller, you name them. But surprisingly, the Houston Texans can run the ball as well. They rank 9th in the league. And their feature back just so happens to be Carlos Hyde, who broke 1,000 rushing yards so far this season and averages 4.4 yards per carry. Now, respectfully, those are, very impressive numbers. And so while I was doing my research, I thought it would be interesting to look at his worst games of the season. And they just so happened to be against the New England Patriots, where he rushed for 17 yards on 10 total attempts, and against the Colts, where he only rushed for 35 yards off of 12 attempts. And so there's a lot of factors that can go into that, like why he didn't do too well. But one of the conclusions that I made was the fact that Carlos Hyde did his worst against the 6th and 7th ranked rush defense in the NFL. So anytime that he went up against a top 10 rush defense, he had numbers super similar to this. And ladies and gentlemen, the Buffalo Bills just so happen to rank 10th on run defense so far this year. And what's more interesting is just the fact that the Buffalo Bills are only allowing 7 to 10 more yards per game on average compared to the Colts and the New England Patriots. So with that stat at light, I have a feeling that we're about to be seeing very similar numbers against Carlos Hyde. So based off of those stats alone, and based off of the fact that the Houston Texans offensive line's rush blocking is 22nd in the league, I think that we're going to match up against Carlos Hyde very, very well. And if Houston wants to beat us, they have to beat us in the passing game. And that just so happens to be against the best secondary in the NFL. I mean, I got to give credit where credit is due, ladies and gentlemen. Watson is an absolute baller. Say that I had to describe him in one word, it would have to be accurate. So far this season, he's racked up 3,852 yards in the air with a 67.3 completion percentage. That must be nice. And then 26 touchdowns. And then adding to that, 413 rush yards and additional 7 touchdowns on the ground. The man can thread the needle just about better than anybody in the NFL. In fact, he only threw for under 60% completion percentage in 3 games so far this season. But like any quarterback in the NFL, there is a way to beat him. And how we do it? Pressure the ever-living shit out of him. And while doing research, I tried finding a specific stat that translated into an automatic Houston Texans loss. And boy oh boy, did I find one. When Watson is sacked more than 5 times, the Houston Texans lose. So that just so happened to be against Baltimore, Jacksonville, and Denver. And they each sacked Watson 6 times and were continuously pressuring him the entire game. Now he's 0-3 in those matchups. And it's also funny as well because all 3 of those teams fall in the top 10 in sack percentage in the NFL. And ladies and gentlemen, the Buffalo Bills just so happen to fall into that list as well. Top 10 sack percentage defense. If we want to come out on top of this game, we need to make sure that we pressure Watson as much as we possibly can. Make it a living nightmare for him because God forbid that we give him time in that pocket. It doesn't matter if Trey White is guarding Hopkins or Levi Wallace is, Levi Wallace is taking care of Fuller, say that he's healthy. The more time that we give Watson in the pocket, it's going to be super, super dangerous. So I'm looking for huge games from Jordan Phillips and Ed Oliver and company, and our linebackers to be smart enough to make sure that Watson cannot extend plays with his legs. As long as we put pressure on Watson, then it's going to be a long and difficult day for him. Now, ladies and gentlemen, there is a lot to unpack about this game. I totally understand that. I thought that I would just give, my 3 main points of why I believe that the Buffalo Bills are going to beat the Houston Texans. This has been an incredible season. Like I said, I really believe that we're about to come out on top this weekend and advance to the divisional round. I really, really like that matchup, guys. I really like the matchup. Their defense is god-awful, and I think that our defense has shut down better offenses than what they are producing so far this year. Besides that, guys, thank you so much for tuning in to yet another edition of the Dom Mafia Report. I really, really hope that next video is going to be me just celebrating on how we put out some great football on this past Saturday. Do me a favor, leave a comment. What's your score prediction? What do you think is the #1 key into beating the Houston Texans on Saturday? Yeah, but besides that, guys, thank you for tuning in, and let's go Buffalo.